get more now on one of our top stories in the collapse of construction giant Carillion. The company was awarded £2 billion worth of government contracts last year, despite issuing a series of profit warnings. Mark Farmer is the founding director and chief executive officer at Castor Property and Construction Consultancy. Joins us now from our central London studio. Hello to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Sky News. How could this have happened?
Well, it's difficult to speculate at this stage as to the exact reasons, but it would appear to be a multitude of different things that have, as a cumulative effect, have led to the collapse of Carillion. So we knew that there was a big issue with their pension fund. We knew they had a very diversified business in terms of not only doing construction project work, but running property management and facilities management. And I think what's happened is that some of the risk that they've taken on as part of a very diversified portfolio has added to the burdens of their pension pot and led to a position where actually they've obviously become insolvent. And the fact that they've moved from 3 consecutive profit warnings into a position of compulsory liquidation within 8 or 9 months just shows you how fast this picture has evolved.
Could it have been predicted? You point out there quite rightly, Mr. Farmer, about the fact that there have been 3 warnings, profit warnings, in just a short period of 6 months, and yet they were still given these contracts. Could it have not been predicted?
I think the extent of the issues were clearly much deeper and much more serious than perhaps lots of people thought. Only the people around that boardroom and advising them will know the ins and outs of what's happened over the last few months. But it's clear to go into a position of compulsory liquidation and bypassing the avenue of a debt for equity swap, for instance, from their bankers, or even an administration in terms of trying to salvage parts of their business, suggests that this was a very deep-seated issue. And I find it hard to imagine that kind of situation can accelerate so quickly, such that some of the warning signs wouldn't have been visible 6-8 months ago. So I think the pace at which this has happened is a real surprise, and it's unprecedented, not just in our industry, but I think in corporate life across the board.
So what was the issue? Was it the fact that they were focusing on turnover rather than improving margins? What was going on?
I think that there is a deep-seated issue with construction delivery models at the moment, and you've picked up on one of the specific problems, which is that construction is a turnover and cash flow based model. So actually, rather than focusing on profit and margin and appropriate risk transfer, there is a lot of focus around growth and absolute turnover. And in many instances, and Carillion's no exception, the actual level of turnover that's delivered by Carillion employees is quite low, because the model that's used is subcontracting, it's outsourcing, so the reliance on other people to deliver the bulk of what Carillion were actually responsible for delivering to third-party clients means that the risks of being able to be responsible and being able to deliver predictable outcomes for clients is gradually increasing, particularly as we move into a skills crisis in construction, where it's more and more difficult to get the right calibre of people working on construction projects.
What are the ramifications for other businesses? And I mean, does it matter whether they're part completed or whether they've actually not started yet?
I think projects that are not started are in a better position than ones that are part completed. I think if you've got construction projects that are live and are on site at the moment, and Carillion have been delivering those construction projects, there's going to be quite a lot of disruption. The fact that this is a liquidation as opposed to an administration means that there's no chance of Carillion carrying on as a going concern. So all of those clients and advisors that are working on live construction projects, part complete, now have to get down to understanding their strategies for completion, getting new contractors on board, trying to minimise the impacts around delays. There's bound to be additional costs, and there's also issues around ensuring that the quality of what's been done to date is maintained and actually is owned by a single entity, preferably at the end of the construction process, which is going to be quite problematic now.
How surprised are you, Mr. Farmer, that the government has said, you know what, you're on your own?
I'm not particularly surprised, and I think from a personal perspective it was the right decision. I think bailing Carillion out in any shape or form would have sent a message to the sector that actually you're able to get into this position and be bailed out. And I think that's absolutely a floodgates position, which wouldn't do the construction industry any good. It certainly wouldn't do the taxpayer any good. So I think this is tough love, and this is going to be painful, not just for Carillion, but particularly for the subcontractor supply chain, where there's going to be potentially even more damage done down at the lower levels of the industry, where their creditors are going to be hurting. And so we haven't heard the last of where this may end up in terms of the overall casualties in the construction sector, I don't think.
OK, Mr Farmer, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your expertise. We appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.